Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse study of the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Ezra, chapter 4, and the people have returned. Now, only a fraction of the Israelites have returned. Now, keep this in mind. Out of the millions that were dispersed over, you can really say, 100-year period of time. First, the northern tribes, Israel, whose capital was Samaria, fell to the Assyrians. Now we're going to see them in a moment. See that those people again in a moment. And then after that, Nebuchadnezzar conquered Judea, Jerusalem, destroyed the temple. 70 years, the entire land of Israel, laid waste. It is amazing too how fast a land would deteriorate when there's no attention given to it. And so, one of the other things that had happened was there were people who were deported to the land by the Assyrians, and they had been living in this land for a number of years, and they're going to raise opposition to the Jews coming back to the land and also restoring the temple, restoring worship. Okay. So let's bring it up. Is that Ezra chapter 4 says, when the enemies of Judah and Benjamin heard that the returned exiles were building the temple for Yahweh, the God of Israel, they approached Zerubbabel and the leaders of the family and said to them, let us build with you, for we also worship your God, and have been sacrificing to him since the time of King Esarhaddon of Assyria brought us here. Now notice that term, the king of Assyria brought them there, and that's exactly what had happened. You have to go back in our studies in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles. When Israel fell, then the king of Assyria deported some of the people. So they had been living there now for decades. And so now they're pretending to be followers of Yahweh, and in reality they're not. And here's a good way you can tell. First of all, the Levitical law only says that the priest had to handle the building of the temple, the sacrifices. I mean the ordinances, the worship. Only the people of Israel were the ones who were to build and take part of that. I'm talking the Levites. If they were true followers of Yahweh, then they would have said, you're right, praise the Lord, okay. But they were, we're going to say once they're rejected, they're going to turn to other tactics. So their first approach was, hey, we're with you, which was the rules. And the leaders, Zerubbabel, and we're going to see more of his name between Ezra and Nehemiah, but he's the leader, sort of the, not the king, they don't call him a king, but he's the leader in Jerusalem, and you could say for the entire exile return. Verse 3, but Zerubbabel, Jeshua, and other leaders of Israel's family answered them, you may have no part with us in the building a house for our God, since we alone must build it for Yahweh, the King of Israel, as King Cyrus, the King of Persia, has commanded us. Now they threw in, remember, King Cyrus issued a decree, which they very much needed. The fact that he allowed them to come back into the land, of course, this was the hand of God. And of course, also remember, a tremendous prophetic fulfillment. Okay, verse 4, then the people who were already in the land discouraged the people of Judah and made them afraid to build. So the first tactic was to pretend like they were a part of them. Now, he said, they resorted to fear tactics. They also bribed officials to act against them to frustrate their plans throughout the reign of King Cyrus of Persia until the reign of King Darius of Persia. At the beginning of the reign of Ahasuerus, the people who were already in the land wrote an accusation against the residents of Judah and Jerusalem during the time of King Artaxerxes of Persia. Basilam, Mithridat, Tabeel, and the rest of his colleagues wrote to King Artaxerxes. The letter was written in Arabic and translated. So again, forgive me for the butchering of these names. All right. Verse 8, Rahim, chief deputy of Shishai, the scribe, wrote the letter to King Artaxerxes, concerning Jerusalem as follows. From Rahim, chief deputy Shimshai, the scribe, and the rest of their colleagues, the judges, the magistrates from Tripolis, Persia, Erect, Babylon, Shushan, that is the people of Elam, and the rest of the peoples who the great and illustrious Ashurbanipal deported and settled in the cities of Samaria in the regions west of the Euphrates River. Okay, so this is kind of more of a historic nature too, showing how the regions of the northern kingdoms again got populated by non-Jews, and this is going to be important later on in terms of the beginning of what the New Testament, once we get there, what would be called the Samaritans. Verse 11. This is the text of the letters they sent to him, to King Artaxerxes. I don't know why I can't get that. From your servants, the men of the regions west of the Euphrates River, let it be known to the king that the Jews who came from you have returned to us at Jerusalem. They are rebuilding that rebellious, evil city, finishing its walls, and repairing its foundation. Now let it be known to the king that if the city is rebuilt and its walls are finished, they will not pay tribute, duty, or land tax, and the royal revenue will suffer, since we have taken an oath of loyalty to the king, and it is not right for us to witness this dishonor. We have sent to inform the king that a search should be made in your father's record books. In these record books you will discover and verify that the city is a rebellious city, harmful to the kings and providence. There have been revolts in it since the ancient time. That is why the city was destroyed. We advise the king that if the city is rebuilt and its walls were finished, you will not have any possessions west of the Euphrates. Now, kind of interesting here that you're going to see not everybody. Now, if you remember, Cyrus writes that he is a follower of God, and thus when he issued the decree, it was in recognition to Yahweh, the God of gods. But as we see that not everyone in the kingdom thinks this way. So even those among his own, they don't think this way. So, verse 17, then the king sent a reply to his chief deputy, Rahim, Shimshai, the scribe, and the rest of the colleagues living in Samaria and elsewhere in the regions west of the Euphrates River. Greetings. This letter you have sent us has been translated and read in my presence, and I issued a decree, and a search was conducted. It was discovered that this city had had uprising against kings since ancient time. Kind of interesting now, if you will note that Jerusalem, the Israel, has been known to other people, during this time. It says, and there have been rebellions and revolts in it. Powerful kings have also ruled over Jerusalem, exercised authority over the whole region, and the tribute, duty, and the land tax were paid to them. Now that's kind of interesting here too, because notice this is a Gentile ruler who has got this report. So when he says powerful kings, no doubt he's talking about David, Solomon, Uriah, Hezekiah. We can go on and on and on. But notice they're taking note of this. Verse 21. Therefore issue an order for these men to stop, so that the city will not be rebuilt until a further decree has been pronounced by me. See that you not neglect this matter, otherwise the damage will increase and the royal interest will suffer. And so it's the text of King Artaxerxes. The letter was read to Rehum, Shimshad the scribe, and their colleagues. They merely went to the Jews in Jerusalem and forcibly stopped them. So they manhandled them, in other words. So now the construction of God's house in Jerusalem had stopped and remained a standstill until the second year of the reign of Darius of Persia. You see this opposition. By the way, this is a spiritual nature. So understand that a spiritual one. In other words, why do they care, right? But they do. Now, remember, you got why I'm having to tell his name. Artaxerxes, the king. He's not a godly man as Darius was, and this is why you had this conflict. Verse 5. Verse 1 says, chapter 5, verse 1 says, but when the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, son of Iddo, prophesied to the Jews who were in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of God of Israel, who was over them. Stop. Now, just a sidebar of biblical trivia. When you see this here, this validates the letters that we will get into. The last three letters of the Old Testament, Haggai, Zechariah, and then Malachi. Notice Haggai and Zechariah were prophets doing this return from exile. Okay? So this is kind of amazing here. Verse 2, Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, the son of Josadak, began to rebuild God's house in Jerusalem. The prophets of God were with them, helping them. At that time, Tataniah, the governor of the region west of the Euphrates rivers, Shetherbadoni, and the colleagues came to the Jews and asked, who gave you the order to rebuild this temple and to finish the structure? They also asked them, where are the names of the workers who are constructing this building? But God was watching over the Jews, over the Jewish elders. And these men wouldn't stop until the report was sent to Darius, so that they could receive written instruction about this matter. This is the text of the letter that Tatina, I'm sorry for butchering these names again, the governor of the region west of the Euphrates River, Shethar Bozenai, and their colleagues, the official in the regions, sent to King Darius. They sent a report written as follows. To King Darius, now he succeeded Cyrus, this king here. All greetings, let it be known to the king that we went to the house of the great God in the province of Judah. It is being built with cut stones, and it's being set in the wall. The work is being done diligently and succeeding through the people's efforts. So we questioned the elders and asked, who gave you this order to rebuild this temple and to finish the structure? We also asked them for their names so that we could write down their names of their leaders to inform you. This is the reply that they gave us. This is the letter that they're writing again. We are the servants of the God of heaven and God of heaven and earth, and are rebuilding the temple that was built many years ago, which a great king of Israel built and finished, obviously referring to Solomon. But since our fathers angered the God of heaven, he handed them over to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, the Chaldeans, who destroyed this temple and deported the people to Babylon. However, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Babylon, he issued a decree to rebuild the house of God. Now, just a quick note, Cyrus was of the Medes and the Persians, but he ruled over the region of Babylon. He issued, okay, verse 14, he also took from the temple of Babylon the gold and the silver, articles of God's house that Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. And he carried them to the temple in Babylon. He released them from the temple in Babylon to a man named Sheshbazzar, the governor, by the appointment of King Cyrus. Cyrus told them, take these articles, take these articles, put them in the temple in Jerusalem, and let the house of God be rebuilt on its original site. Then the same Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundation of God's house in Jerusalem. It has been under construction from the time until now, yet it has not been completed. So if it pleases the king, let a search of the royal archives in Babylon be constructed to see if it is true that a decree was issued by King Cyrus to rebuild the house of God in Jerusalem. Let the king's decision regarding this matter be sent to us. I'm going to start in this next chapter because here is the search. Chapter 6. King Darius gave the order, and they searched the library of Babylon in the archives, but it was in the fortress of Ecbatana in the province of the Media that a scroll was found with this record written on it. In the first year of King Cyrus, he issued a decree concerning the house of God in Jerusalem. He says, let the house be rebuilt as a place for offering sacrifice, and let its original foundations be retained. Its height to be 90 feet, and width 90 feet, with 3 layers of cut stone and timber. The cost is to be paid from the royal treasury. Now, it's interesting that Cyrus himself was paying for this. The gold and silver articles of God's house that Nebuchadnezzar took from the temple in Jerusalem and carried to Babylon must be returned. They are to be brought to the temple in Jerusalem where they belong and put into the house of God. Therefore, you must stay away from that place. Tattenai, governor of the region west of the Euphrates rivers, Sheltar-Bonita, and your colleagues, the officials in the regions, leave the construction of the house of God alone. Let the governor and the elders of the Jews rebuild the house of God on its original site. I hereby issue a decree concerning what you must do so that the elders of the Jews can rebuild their house. The cost is to be paid in full to these men out of the royal revenues from the taxes of the regions west of the Euphrates, so that the work must not stop. Whatever is needed, young bulls, rams, and lambs from burnt offerings to the God of heaven, or wheat, salt, wine, and oil as requested by the priests in Jerusalem, that it be given to them every day without fail, so that they can offer sacrifice of pleasing aroma to the God of heaven and pray for the life of the kings and their son. I also issue a decree concerning any man who interferes with his activities. Let a beam be torn from his house and raised up, and he will be impaled on it, and his house will be made into a garbage dump because of this offense. May the God who caused his name to dwell there overthrow any king or people who dares harm and interfere with this house of God in Jerusalem. I, Darius, have issued this decree. Let it be carried out diligently. Then Tattenai, governor of the region west of the Euphrates, rest of the Euphrates rivers, Shethar-Bozenah, and their colleagues diligently carried out what the king Darius has decreed. So the Jewish elders continue successfully with the building under the prophecy prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah son of Iddo. They finished the building according to the command of the God of Israel and the decrees of Cyrus, Darius, King Artaxerxes of Persia. This house was completed on the 3rd month of Adar in the 6th year of the reign of King Darius. So, kind of interesting here that you got the big kings overthrowing kind of the lower level kings here. In other words, the men appealed to the lower level king, Artaxerxes, who did not do his homework fully. Okay? But they found the letter issued, the decree that was issued by Darius. Verse 16. The Israelites, including the priests, the Levites, and the rest of the exiles, celebrated the dedication of the house of God with joy. For the dedication of God's house, they offered 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 lambs, as well as 12 male goats, as a sin offering for all Israel, one for each Israelite tribe. They also appointed the priests by their divisions, the Levites, the groups, the servants of God in Jerusalem, according to what was written in the book of Moses. Now, if you remember, too, we had that long list that we glossed over in chapters 1 to 3, and many of that was to preach for this reason. The exile observed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. All of the priests and Levites were ceremonially clean because they had purified themselves. They killed the Passover lamb for themselves, their priestly brothers, and all of the exiles, the Israelites who had returned from the exile, ate it together with all who had separated themselves from the uncleanness of the Gentiles of the land in order to worship Yahweh, the God of Israel. They observed the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days with joy because the Lord had made them joyfully, had changed the Assyrian king's attitudes toward them, so that they supported them in the work on the house of the God of Israel. All right, so again, kind of a remarkable story, because remember, they had no love for the Jews, but yet God put it in the heart of Cyrus and Darius, two of the top kings of the Medes and the Persians. And so they did finish their building. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next study.